Hey, let's make another training video on the X-T2. Let's go over some systematic things to make things easy, and then I'm going to show you some custom settings that will speed up your usage of the X-T2, also that you don't have to go into the menu settings when you're out shooting. Now, a question that's often asked is why shoot fine plus raw? That means a fine JPEG and a raw file. If you shoot in backup mode, not RAW to card 1 and JPEG to card 2, it gives you two advantages, one in camera and one in computer. What that lets you do is after you've taken a shot, it lets you chimp in at 100%, real 100%, on the shot that you just took to make sure that it's in focus. If you're just shooting either RAW to card 1 and JPEG to card 2, or just shooting RAW only, you can't actually zoom in at a true 100% to check focus. The second advantage that you actually have doing that is workflow in computer. Instead of actually scrolling through a tremendous amount of raw files, what I'll do is I'll find the corresponding perfect JPEGs, and then I'll find the raw file that corresponds to that. So it actually speeds up workflow. It's a great reason why to shoot in fine and raw. Another thing, since a lot of people are buying adapters for using non-Fuji lenses, you need to go to Settings, okay, and then Button and Dial, and then scroll down. People are saying, well, I've got an adapter and like a Nikkor lens on my Fuji. What you need to do is you need to have this set shoot without lens on. The default is off from the factory, so you need to turn that on. Shooting without lens, what this should be called is shooting with an adapted lens, so that's really what its intent and purpose is. Okay, let's go over to AF plus MF, okay, and then we're going to go here. Autofocus plus manual focus. With this set to on, the default is off. In single point shooting mode, not in a continuous autofocus, what it lets you do is when you press the shutter release button halfway down and you get a confirmation of lock of autofocus, you can actually reach forward while you still have the shutter release button pressed halfway down and fine-tune the autofocus yourself. What you'll see is focus peaking. You can actually click the rear command dial to zoom in. Well, it doesn't actually zoom in, it lets you see it 100%, and then you can actually fine-tune the autofocus setting where it is you want, if it is different from where the camera selects it to be. But that obviously is not going to work in continuous autofocus mode. So with AF plus MF turned on, shutter release button halfway, single autofocus mode, keep it pressed the rest of the way. Click your rear command dial once and you'll see 100% image of what it is that you want to focus on. Then use the focus ring on your lens to use the focus peaking to zoom in on what you want. Another thing that will save you time on startup is go into user settings. I always have this off. Really just totally useless. I clean all my own sensors, but when you have a sensor cleaning set to on when switched on, what that does is it sucks time when you go to turn the camera on. It's unnecessary. I always have it switched off. It is really rather a useless feature. You know, when my sensor gets dirty, I will clean my own bloody sensor. You need to learn how to clean your own sensor too, of which I've already made, I think, like 4 or 5 different videos on doing that. Another important thing, let's get out of this, and when you hold the display back button down for a few seconds, what you'll get is your 8 different function buttons for programming. Now here's where I have mine set. Now that's just me personally. The key important thing is that the things that you primarily use should be external function buttons. We have 8 in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and then the button on the very front of the camera right here. Now I've actually set this function button right here for my drive function. I'm going to show you what that's for in a second. But I've actually got my front button set for playback. I hate when I'm actually shooting to have to go up and do this number with a second hand. I got my hand on the camera. I'll never have to do this ever again. I can use my middle finger on the front of the camera, hit that for playback. I never have to move my hand again. I mean, I can go back to shooting, hit playback, chimp, and I never have to bring my left hand up to the camera to hit the playback function. So I actually have that set for there. I have my drive function button set for this button right here. And my AFC custom button set for my top menu button. My autofocus mode set to my left menu function button, my autofocus area set to my right, the bottom menu function button set to flash, and then I've reprogrammed my AEL to face detect. So this is no longer auto exposure. This is set to face detection, and I've reset my AFL to be both auto exposure lock and AFL lock. And what you do is to reset any of these, you go over and you get a long list of things that you can actually choose to reprogram your buttons, your primary 8 function buttons, to where you want. Like I said, I have this function button set to drive. Now I got a question from a couple people who says, well, when I hit the drive button, it doesn't actually do anything, and that's correct. If you were in single mode or continuous high, where I'll go to right now, single or continuous low or continuous high, it's not going to do anything. I'm going to hit that button, nothing's going to happen. Well, I'm in continuous high now. It'll actually let me choose between 11 frames per second and 14 frames per second, but I'm actually getting at over in single. If I hit it, nothing happens. Over in continuous low and continuous high, it lets me actually choose between 11 frames per second and 14. 11 is the max for mechanical shutter, 14 for electronic shutter, if I'm in boost mode, which I am right now. But what this is for is you need to bring your drive dial all the way over here to bracket. And what that lets me do is I'll go out of that. Once I bring my drive dial over to bracket, I've got my drive button set here, and then I get an option for choosing exposure bracketing, ISO bracketing, film simulation bracketing, or white balance bracketing. I have absolutely no use in the world for ISO bracketing or film simulation or white balance bracketing. I do, however, use auto exposure bracketing at a stop and 3/4. What that'll do is it'll take a normal exposure, a stop and 3/4 over, and a stop and 3/4 under. And now when I actually take a shot, it will take 3 shots in succession in single mode. You have to be, of course, in bracket to do that. So that is what I have done by taking a primary function button and assigning it to one of my 8 external buttons, as I mentioned to you before. And I'll go over here and press my drive dial back button again, and that's how I actually have my. Now where you want to assign yours is totally up to you. I'm not saying this is the way you should do it. It's however you feel comfortable. The most important things need to be set for your 8 external buttons. The things that are secondarily of importance need to be set for the Q button, which is the quick button, the quick menu up here. And the way you actually set that is go into menus, settings, button dial setup, edit, save, quick menu. Okay? Now here's how I've actually set mine. My top first priority is shutter. What that lets me choose when I'm back in the regular camera mode, it lets me choose between electronic shutter and mechanical shutter. Let me actually get out of this so I could show you. So I'd hit my Q button. Up here I would rotate my rear command dial, and it lets me choose between electronic shutter, mechanical shutter, or ES and MS. Okay? My next important thing in my quick menu, like I said, these are things of secondary importance. Actually, the factory defaults for the quick menu are really rather stupid. They're things that I would never adjust. I mean, I don't want to adjust my file size. I mean, I've got my file size, you know, locked into place forever, basically. I really got no need to change it. I can change my focus peaking to white high or to red high, red low, blue low, blue high. Like, for example, white high would be really bad for the beach. White high is really good for, like, dark situations and indoors. But if I were shooting on the beach, I'd actually want to drag it over to a red or to a blue high. Actually, on the beach stuff, blue high actually looks best. So I'm going to drop it back to white high and go back into this. I have my white balance settings. I've actually got film simulations here. I can actually choose and rotate my rear command dial to blue, Astia, sepia, standard, Velvia, all my little standard settings. I'm going to leave it on standard. And that's it. Those are the only things I can actually change. Let me go into quick menus again and, go into quick menus again and go up into mechanical shutter. You notice that the flash icon disappears when I'm in electronic shutter. You say you can't use flash in electronic shutter, but as soon as I go over to mechanical shutter, this gives me an option for doing these other things with flash. Also, for movie mode, this lets me adjust my microphone input gain. That's important. That's why I have this on my quick menu. Face detection. I've already actually got that set to my auto exposure lock button, but that's just me. You can put it wherever you want to. Sharpness, never use that. White balance I do. Peaking I do. Switching between mechanical and electronic shutter, I definitely use that. I definitely want my microphone adjustment input changed here. And I definitely want my film simulation right here. So that's that. Those are where I have things set. And remember, you need to be in bracketing mode to be able to use that drive setting. Okay. And I have that for this function button set right next to the shutter speed dial, but you set it wherever you see fit. Okay? I hope that was helpful. Let me know what it is I can help you on. I actually, ironically enough, some people have issues. Their hands are all over the place like a squirrel on crack, and they have to lock their buttons in. On my X-T2, there's actually plenty enough resistance that I never actually locked my wheels in. Now, I know if you're actually carrying your camera on your side, you know, these dials can be hit by your shirt or whatnot. That is understandable. But I actually have never any need to keep these locked in. The only dial that I do lock in is I'm usually shooting in aperture priority, so right now I'm on an automatic shutter and I'm adjusting my aperture via my aperture ring on this 16 to 55. But everything else, no. Remember, you have 4 metering modes. On your metering mode, you have spot, center weight, matrix, and average, so you have one extra there on your X-T2 as opposed to your X-T1, which only has 3 metering modes available. Very useful. Oh, another important thing was on Interlock. Everybody actually should have this set. You go into menu, and it's under AF/MF, and it is interlock, spot, exposure, and focus area. So when you're in single mode, it will interlock whichever spot that you actually have over whatever it is that you're focused on. And then what I'll do is I'll hit my AFL button, which is programmed for not only focus lock but exposure lock, and then I'll recompose. If the depth of field and the distance are fine enough so they don't actually reach past it, and I know I've got it in anyway, I'll hit my AFL, which also locks in my exposure, and then recompose. So I want a meter for a tiny little spot. That's incredibly useful for a lot of things. So that's interlock, spot, auto exposure, and focus area. It means wherever in single mode, let me go into single mode here, let me drop this down. And we get back into single mode instead of zone, single mode here. This little area not only represents my point of focus, but also my point of exposure. So with interlock, spot, AE, I am, wherever I place this point, not only making that my point of focus, but also my point of spot exposure. So, very handy. Okay? Thanks for watching, and catch you later. Bye.